It's a shame. And I'm mad.
Mr. Copeland, I can see you're very angry. Did you do a lot of cheating?
No.
Yes, he did.
Me?
A lot of cheating.
What about you?
He abandoned you, stuck you with bills, and now your parents are forced to help you raise your daughter.
When we both made this child, so he should step up and do what he has to do. We started dating on and off because he's a cheater, so I can't stay with
I'm
a cheater.
You're a cheater.
Yeah, I was always committed to him. He wasn't committed to me. So we took a pregnancy test, and I could see in his eyes that he was scared. You know, today we're gonna prove that he is the father, and if he doesn't do what he has to do, I will put him on child support.
I didn't go there and say, hey,
What?
Can you take me in,
Did you
He lived with us.
It was
He
both.
lived with us.
I didn't want him to. I'm sorry.
Deadbeat. Oh, really?
He's a deadbeat. His daughter called me daddy. It's a shame. And I'm mad.
Mr. Copeland, I can see you're very angry. You feel
When the truth arrives in the courtroom, it never comes quietly. DNA tests don't just reveal biology. They expose trust, love, identity, loyalty, betrayal, and the hidden realities that people never thought would surface. In Judge Lauren Lake's courtroom, truth changes everything. The courtroom atmosphere is filled with a kind of emotional weight that only comes when lives, families, and identities are on the line. Judge Lauren Lake sits at the bench with composure, prepared to navigate not just legal questions, but the deeply personal conflicts that have brought two adults to seek answers through a DNA test. The central issue is paternity, but beneath that surface lies something far more complex. Disappointment, abandonment, broken promises, and the lingering belief that people regret taking certain tests only because they are afraid of what the truth might confirm. On one side, the young mother stands with visible exhaustion. She has raised her daughter with the help of her parents. She believes firmly that the man she brought to court is the biological father. She speaks of long nights caring for the child alone, of responsibilities she carried without partnership, and of the emotional cost of raising a child while trying to prove the father's involvement should have never been a question. She insists that she never cheated and that the accusations of infidelity are just excuses used to avoid accountability. Her message is straightforward. She wants recognition, support, and closure. On the other side, the alleged father challenges that belief. His perspective is shaped by suspicion, friends' comments, social media messages, and his own internal doubts. He explains that although he was present at the birth and even signed the birth certificate, he struggled with believing the child was truly his. He describes a lack of bonding, a sense that the child did not resemble him, and an ongoing sense of uncertainty that grew stronger over time. His testimony shows that adverse inference in evidence can sometimes develop not from formal legal rules, but from emotional assumptions, bias, and hearsay. Judge Lauren Lake listens to both sides carefully, not simply as a legal authority, but as someone who understands that the relationship between law and justice is not always smooth or direct. The law can determine biological paternity, but justice requires acknowledgement, responsibility, healing, and human honesty. The judge asks questions that help clarify the emotional history, the financial struggles, and the family dynamics that have led to this moment. She guides the conversation with firm clarity, ensuring that both individuals express their experiences with precision rather than chaos. The mother's parents play a significant role in this case. Their involvement highlights how child support cases extend beyond two individuals. Families absorb the consequences of absence. The grandparents recount times when they provided housing, money, and emotional support. Their message to the alleged father is consistent. If you are the father, you must step into the role fully. Parenting is not selective participation, but a lifetime responsibility. The father's side, however, insists that assumptions about responsibility cannot override doubts about paternity. His defense aligns with the principle that before responsibility can be assigned, truth must be verified. This reflects the jurisprudential foundation that justice requires evidence, not emotional pressure. In that sense, the situation echoes discussions often heard on the Game Changing Attorney podcast. or the Divorce Course podcast, where legal professionals explain how personal relationships unravel in courtrooms when documentation and truth take precedence over narrative and memory. Judge Lauren Lake recognizes that the emotional wounds are deep on both sides. She also understands that truth changes everything, and once revealed, the court cannot undo what facts make clear. She explains that the courtroom is not a place to decide who was a better partner or who has a more persuasive story. Rather, it is a place where facts illuminate responsibilities and reveal the foundation upon which future decisions must be built. This case also touches on broader themes discussed in concepts of justice in jurisprudence. Justice is not only about determining legal obligations, but also about restoring balance and fairness. The truth must be accepted, even if it does not match expectations. The judge emphasizes that the test results will not simply identify a biological father. They will determine how the rest of this child's life unfolds in terms of financial support, emotional involvement, and family identity. An interesting emotional dynamic occurs when the child's resemblance becomes a point of contention. The mother insists the child carries physical traits that clearly connect her to the alleged father, while he strongly rejects this, stating that a lack of bonding reinforced his suspicion. Judge Lake clarifies that visual resemblance is not evidence. The court relies on science, not subjective comparison. The involvement of extended family also introduces themes similar to those discussed in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where healing requires confronting uncomfortable truths and acknowledging personal failures without excuses. The court environment becomes a reflective space for evaluating personal responsibility, emotional maturity, and accountability. Meanwhile, the situation subtly mirrors adoption stories' full episodes, where identity is shaped by emotional bonds as well as biological ties. The older child whom the alleged father bonded with complicates the emotional narrative. The judge points to this as proof that the father is capable of forming genuine relationships, which suggests that his detachment from the younger child stems from emotional conflict, not an inherent inability to parent. The mother seeks compensation for child-rearing expenses, a matter that shifts the conversation from emotional context to financial accountability. Judge Lauren Lake clarifies that reimbursement depends entirely on the DNA test results. If the man is proven to be the biological father, child support and shared responsibilities become legally enforceable. If not, he cannot be obligated. As the case progresses, the courtroom reflects not just a stage in a divorce case, but an arena where identity, responsibility, and truth converge. The environment feels like listening to a thoughtful conversation on Truth Changes Everything podcast, where the central message is that emotional decisions must eventually align with reality. People must face the truth no matter how painful, because only then can the healing and rebuilding process begin. The judge prepares the courtroom for the moment of truth. The DNA results are brought in an envelope, sealed and untouched. Every expression in the room shifts. Tension replaces breath. Silence becomes heavy. Lives are about to change based on what the paper declares. The judge emphasizes one more time. Whatever the result shows, the child must not become the casualty of adult conflict. The child deserves identity, support, love, and stability. The result will determine obligations, but it cannot determine whether the adults choose to grow into better versions of themselves. The truth, once revealed, will either confirm the mother's beliefs or validate the father's suspicions. Either way, the courtroom will witness a transformation. The courtroom breathes in slow tension as Judge Lauren Lake prepares to read through more of the testimonies. What stands out in this environment is not just the question of paternity, but the emotional history layered beneath. The mother and alleged father did not arrive here as strangers. They share memories, shared hopes that once existed, shared disappointment, and shared fear of what the truth may expose. The courtroom becomes a place where the past is retold not just to inform a legal decision, but to make sense of where everything started to break. As Judge Lake allows each voice to expand their narrative, it becomes clear that this is not simply a dispute over scientific evidence. It is a confrontation with regret. The mother expresses regret over trusting someone who did not remain. The father expresses regret over committing to something before he was emotionally prepared. Both express regret that this dispute has now become something public, something recorded, something that will forever be part of their story. And yet, people regret taking DNA tests only when they fear the truth may contradict the identity they have chosen to embrace. For the mother, the truth is straightforward. She knows the father of her child. She knows the timeline, the behaviors, the memories, and the intimacy that define their relationship. Her stance is grounded in lived experience and emotional commitment. For the father, however, the truth has become complicated. Where the mother sees clarity, he sees contradictions. Where she recalls consistency, he recalls uncertainty. His doubts were strengthened by outside voices, comments from friends, the kinds of rumors that shape perception without supplying proof. Suspicion grew not from evidence, but from insecurity. Judge Lauren Lake often sees this pattern repeat in her courtroom. Rumors become assumptions, assumptions become emotional convictions, and emotional convictions begin to masquerade as truth. This is where the relationship between law and justice becomes deeply relevant. Law demands facts. Justice requires perspective. When individuals rely on emotional memory instead of factual clarity, conflict becomes inevitable and families become fractured. That is why the court exists, to separate belief from proof. The grandparents' involvement continues to highlight another dimension of family grief. Their support has been financial, emotional, and practical. Their frustration is not merely with the alleged father, but with the emotional harm caused to their daughter and grandchild. They believe that when someone participates in the earliest moments of a child's life, holds the child at birth, signs the birth certificate, and celebrates early milestones, that involvement is not accidental. It represents acknowledgement of responsibility. For them, stepping back later does not just feel irresponsible, it feels like abandonment. Yet, the father's side argues a different philosophy. He believes that signing the birth certificate does not negate unresolved questions. He sees his early participation not as confirmation of paternity, but as an attempt to do the right thing, even while struggling internally. His relationship with the child was interrupted not because he did not care, but because he feared forming a bond that might later be proven to rest on a false foundation. This highlights how emotional and psychological safety form barriers that may prevent genuine fatherhood from unfolding until certainty is established. Judge Lake understands this pattern well. Episodes like this resemble stories told in the Divorce Course podcast, where couples describe the breakdown of trust and how unresolved suspicions eventually become legal disputes. Many people enter relationships without fully understanding the long-term emotional costs of mistrust. And when a child is involved, the consequences carry intergenerational weight. The courtroom discussion then shifts to financial responsibility. The mother explains the expenses she has carried: diapers, formula, medical visits, clothing, childcare arrangements, transportation, and basic living needs. She describes how she relied heavily on her parents, who had already completed their own cycle of raising children and should not have had to start again. The father does not deny that financial support is necessary if paternity is confirmed. His resistance is rooted in the uncertainty of biological connection. This aligns with foundational principles heard in legal analysis discussions, such as the Game-Changing Attorney podcast, where obligations follow evidence. Judge Lauren Lake explains that the court will always apply legal standards that prioritize the child's well-being. The question of who contributed more to the relationship becomes irrelevant once paternity is established. The law focuses on the needs of the child and the shared responsibility to meet those needs. The emotional backstory helps explain how the family arrived at this conflict, but the law centers on ensuring that the child's future is supported, regardless of parental disagreements. The conversation then deepens into the emotional meaning of justice. In jurisprudence, justice is not defined merely by outcomes, but by the process through which truth is determined. The court becomes a place where identity is clarified, This resonates strongly with families who have wrestled with uncertainty, much like adoption stories' full episodes, where individuals try to piece together who they are and where they come from. Identity requires certainty. Without it, emotional confusion becomes part of daily life. Judge Lake brings the father's attention back to one important detail: the bond he formed with the mother's older child. That relationship demonstrates his capacity for care. It shows that he can nurture, connect, and participate in a child's life, even when biology is not a factor. This is significant because emotional bonds are often stronger indicators of parental potential than genetic ties. The judge uses this example to challenge him gently. If he was capable of love in circumstances where the child was not biologically his, then the emotional walls he has placed in front of the younger child were built out of fear, not absence of love. The grandparent's emotional testimony echoes the themes often discussed in Celebrate Recovery testimonies, where healing requires confronting the truth while also acknowledging personal wrongdoing. Their desire is not punishment. Their desire is accountability. They want the father to understand the gravity of his role and the influence he has on a child's sense of security and belonging. The courtroom now reflects a shared vulnerability. No one is without pain. No one is without mistakes. The mother wishes she had been more emotionally guarded. The father wishes he had been more communicative and more stable. The grandparents wish they had not needed to step into the parenting role again. Judge Lauren Lake reminds everyone that clarity is coming. The DNA test does not change the past. It does not change the emotional pain, the financial stress, or the memories of separation. What it does change is the future. Truth provides direction. Truth provides closure. Truth provides structure for accountability. Before the results can be read, Judge Lake emphasizes once again that the child must remain at the center of every decision made. The adults may feel anger, betrayal, disappointment, or relief, but the child, who did not choose any of the circumstances leading to this courtroom, deserves stability and love. The result will determine legal responsibility, but emotional responsibility must be chosen willingly. The sealed envelope remains on the judge's bench. The weight of the moment grows. Everyone understands that once the envelope is opened, the dispute transitions into resolution. The uncertainty dissolves, replaced by fact. Every expression in the room shifts into a quiet, bracing stillness. In the silence, there is fear, hope, trembling, reflection, and anticipation. Judge Lake rests her hand near the envelope but does not open it yet. She wants the individuals to understand the significance of what is about to happen. She reminds them that truth changes everything, not just legally, but emotionally, spiritually, personally. The courtroom is a place where truths spoken out loud reshape family identity. Once a truth is spoken, it cannot be taken back. The moment stands suspended, waiting for the conclusion. The final moment in the courtroom arrives with a heavy silence. Everyone stands suspended in anticipation, as if the entire room is holding its breath. The envelope on Judge Lauren Lake's bench no longer looks like a simple piece of paper. It represents identity, responsibility, truth, and transformation. It holds the power to confirm love or confirm abandonment. It is a quiet object with life-altering weight. Before opening it, Judge Lake takes a measured moment to frame the significance of what is about to happen. She reminds both parties that the purpose of the court is not to assign shame, humiliation, or moral superiority. The court exists to bring clarity where confusion has shaped people's lives. The truth inside the envelope is not meant to destroy either person. It is meant to build a foundation from which the future can be constructed honestly. She reinforces that there is no justice without truth, and there is no healing without acceptance. The mother steadies herself, holding on to the emotional conviction she has carried since the pregnancy began. She has lived with certainty, but certainty does not erase the pain of feeling abandoned. The father stands differently. His posture is guarded, tense, a physical expression of the internal conflict he has lived with for too long. His greatest fear is not just that he might be the father, but that he may now need to confront the emotional absence he created. And if he is not the father, another kind of grief arises, the grief of having stepped back when he was needed. Judge Lauren Lake opens the envelope. At that moment, the courtroom ceases to be merely a legal arena and becomes a place where destiny is clarified. When she reads the results aloud, the truth is no longer private. It becomes part of the record, part of memory, part of the narrative that this family will carry forward. The result reveals that the alleged father is the biological father. Relief floods one side of the room and shock echoes through the other. The mother's conviction is not just emotionally validated, but scientifically confirmed. The father's doubt dissolves instantly, replaced by undeniable truth. The grandparents' frustration melts into a complex blend of vindication and concern. The result does not simply answer a question. It transforms the emotional landscape of every relationship in the room. Judge Lake does not allow the moment to unfold without guidance. She addresses the father directly, speaking not as a judge delivering legal instruction, but as someone who understands the emotional responsibility tied to fatherhood. She acknowledges the fear he carried, the confusion he faced, and the emotional withdrawal that followed. But now that the truth is known, responsibility can no longer be avoided. The child deserves presence, support, love, consistency, and identity. The father stands in a place of internal confrontation. His fear is replaced by realization. His regret is no longer hypothetical. His choices now exist in the open. And yet, the result also offers him something unexpected: the opportunity to rebuild, reconnect, and redefine himself. In the courtroom, this moment reflects a broader truth, often explored in discussions of the relationship between law and justice. Law delivers factual clarity, but justice requires transformation. The DNA result is the legal outcome, but what happens next determines whether justice will unfold. It is now up to the father to step forward, not because he is compelled by law, but because emotional healing and growth require participation. The financial judgment that follows is straightforward. The mother is entitled to half of the expenses she has carried. The court ensures that her burden is recognized, not simply as emotional effort, but as measurable, compensable responsibility. Child support will be established based on legal standards. The father must contribute moving forward. However, Judge Lauren Lake emphasizes something deeper. Financial contribution, while necessary, is only one part of fatherhood. Emotional presence, trust building, apology, patience, consistency, and respect form the foundation of real parenting. Money sustains a household. Love shapes a childhood. The courtroom now holds a quiet shift. What was once conflict has become possibility. What was once suspicion has become clarity. And what was once distance now has the potential to become connection. This transformation reflects the core lesson often expressed in recovery and healing journeys, like those heard in Celebrate Recovery testimonies. Healing begins when truth is accepted and responsibility is embraced. The mother, though relieved, must now confront her own internal work. The truth does not undo the hurt. The past cannot be erased simply because the DNA test confirms her belief. She must now decide whether she will hold on to resentment or allow space for a new form of co-parenting to emerge. She must choose between carrying anger forward or allowing healing to happen over time. Her parents must also adjust. Their protective role was born out of necessity. They stepped in because they could not watch their daughter and grandchild struggle alone. Now they must make space for another parent to participate, even if trust must be rebuilt slowly and carefully. The father's journey from this point forward mirrors themes often discussed on the Divorce Course podcast. Responsibility does not begin with certainty, it begins with character. Now that the truth is known, he must earn trust, not demand it. He must learn to separate past pain from present duty. The court's decision does not make him a father. His actions will. Judge Lauren Lake concludes the proceedings with clarity. The case is legally resolved, but the emotional story continues beyond the courtroom. The test results have closed one chapter and opened another. One that requires maturity, forgiveness, accountability, and commitment. The courtroom slowly empties, the echo of words spoken lingers. The result will be remembered not just because it established biological truth, but because it created an opportunity for change. The truth has reshaped how this family sees itself. It has aligned law with identity. It has given the child a foundation on which to understand her place in the world. The emotional weight of this transformation mirrors broader discussions seen in Truth, Changes Everything podcast, where acknowledging reality becomes the first step toward rebuilding life. The DNA test has done what it was meant to do, reveal truth. But what the family does next will determine whether that truth becomes healing or remains a wound. The child at the center of all of this will one day learn this story. And when she does, what will matter most will not be the conflict or the courtroom, but whether the adults involved chose growth, forgiveness, and responsibility after the truth was known. Now that the truth is spoken, the future begins.